Yo guys, what's going on? It's Rose here bringing you the WPF Season 3 Delta Draft Analysis. We are back for Season 3. We were invited for the tail end of Season 1 after one of the coaches was forced to drop. We took a little break for Season 2, but we're back Season 3. I'm super excited. We actually had wheel pick this time, 16 out of 16 coaches, and I honestly could not be more excited right now. I think we drafted a really nice team. And I'm honestly, I'm super excited to show it to you guys. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. With our first overall pick, we took Iron Boulder. Now, I've used Iron Boulder before. I used it in the PBA Showdown, which you guys didn't see, but I used it then, and honestly, I had a lot of fun with it, even though this time it's a little different. We are actually making this a Terra Captain. So, with how the WPF's Terra rules are this season, you basically choose 2 Terra Captains that cannot exceed a total of a 25-point budget that is also a part of your overall budget, I believe. And each mon also has a Terra Tax. So Iron Boulder originally is 13 points, but because of its Terra Tax, it's now worth 18. So that leaves us with 7 points left for a Terra Captain later on in the draft. But yeah, I'm super excited to use Iron Boulder. This thing is super fast, hits super hard, gets the booster item because of its, of it being a Paradox mon. I'm very, very, very excited to use this thing. And I paired it up with something I thought was pretty solid to pair it up with. We're going to be pairing it up with Cinderace. Now, I know a good buddy of mine, Shadow, this is kind of like one of his favorite mons to use in draft recently. He's been using it a ton. And I honestly am super, super excited to use it myself. I don't think I've used it before, and I think Cinderace plus Boulder is a very, very good combo because Cinderace is going to be able to get those quick U-turns off into either Boulder or one of my other mons that I'm bringing in later, or honestly just put on enough pressure on its own between Pyro Ball or High Jump Kick or Gunk Shot or something, and with its Libero ability, those moves all become just that little bit stronger because everything will be stab at that point, at least as long as it's the first time I'm using that move. So yeah, super excited to use Cinderace. I think it's very, very solid. Base 119 speed paired with Boulder's 124. 2 fast physical attackers to start off with, but that's honestly perfectly fine considering they kind of balance well for each other. Next up, we're bringing Zarude onto the team. I don't believe I've ever used it, but I think in DLC this is the perfect time to use it because it got access to a phenomenal move in Knockoff. It got access to Knockoff in the DLC. And honestly, I am super, super excited to use this thing. I know a few friends of mine have used it recently and have done fairly well with it. Thomas, one of my best friends on Discord and in the draft community, he's used it recently. I believe it was SPL. I could be wrong. I know he just used it. But no, Zarude is a very, very solid mon, and we're getting 3 fast physical attackers to start off with, Zarude being base 105, but Zarude also has a little bit of versatility in the fact that if I want to run bulky, I can run it bulky. I have around base 100 in almost every stat. Some of it's 105, some of it's 95, but around that base 100 in basically every stat but special attack, I believe, which is phenomenal. Zarude is a very, very, very solid mon, and I'm very excited to use it, being both fast, being, defensive if I want it to be, having access to U-turn, knockoff, dark, all the grass dark and fighting coverage I could ask for. This thing is very, very solid, and I'm very excited to use it. I think Zarude got so much better in the DLC, and I can't wait to see what it does for me. Next up, we're bringing Ursaluna-Bloodmoon into the fray. Now, Ursaluna-Bloodmoon is something I have wanted to use since it was, announced way back at, I think it was sometime last year. When it was announced, and honestly, I'm so glad that I finally get a chance to use it. I think Blood Moon is such a good mon. It's super bulky, it hits super hard, base 135 special attack. Its Mind's Eye ability is kind of broken because it's effectively Scrappy and Keen Eye, and it also ignores evasion. Like it's kind of like a mix of everything, and I love that. Its Blood Moon move is such a hard thing to switch into because base 140 normal is very hard to switch into, and most mons that switch into that don't switch into its earth coverage. Sorry, not its earth coverage, its ground coverage. But no, Ursaluna-Bloodmoon, very, very solid. It can hit very, very hard. It does take hits pretty well. The special side, in terms of defense, not so much. But honestly, I think it's going to be a really solid mon for us, and I think it actually pairs well pretty well with our mons so far, just because everything is going to be able to just kind of get a ton of pivot early on, and this mon is just going to be able to sit there. I can click Calm Mind and Moonlight, and then just start setting up and click some very hard and very just massive attacks with this thing. So super excited to use Blood Moon. I think it's going to be a very solid mon for us, and I think it pairs well with our team so far. Next up, we're bringing Latios onto the team. Now, Latios I don't believe I've used. I think I've used Latios, but I've never used Latios, I believe. Maybe back in Gen 7, but not since then, honestly. So I'm very excited to actually use it. I think Latios is a super underappreciated mon, because it's kind of been power crept a little bit over the last couple of generations. Base 110 speed is still very nice, but it's not what it used to be. It still has a ton of coverage, and its move Mist Ball actually got a huge buff this generation in the DLC. It got the ability to now be a 95 base power move that also has, I think, a 50% chance to lower the special attack of the opponent. Now, Luster Purge for Latios is a little better, because instead of special attack, it's special defense, but I'm not going to, fret over it too much. This thing is still very fast, hits very hard, has a ton of coverage. I can be a Calm Mind set, I can be a Wish Passing set, which is really nice. I can be a little bit of a Baton Passer if I wanted to be. I can have, my normal Dragon Psychic Stab. I can have Water coverage, Ground coverage, or Electric coverage. All the, there's so much that this thing has, and there's really no telling what it wants to do on a week in, week out basis. Next up, we're going to be bringing in Diancie. Now, Diancie is something I've used a handful of times. It's definitely a little bit of a, favorite of mine. I do really like this mon. It's very, very, very bulky, which, coming into this round, I really needed something that was basically just dedicated fat, because I really just didn't have a ton... I didn't have a ton of defense on this team, as you see. I have a ton of super fast, not very, bulky mons, and then Blood Moon obviously kind of shuts that down. But my team so far is very fast, very, very offensive, and Diancie I needed to facilitate that. I also, looking at my draft, I really needed something that was just going to switch into a Draco Meteor, because, quite frankly, I don't have that on this team outside of this. So having a mon that can basically dedicated switch into Dragon types 9 times out of 10 is super nice. Being base 150 in both defenses is super, super easy to just send this thing in, and I can set up hazards with spikes or stealth rocks, get body presses off. Moonblast and rock, and Diamond Storm are moves that it runs very, very frequently. I can be some funny shenanigans with Encore or Endeavor. I also get Earth Power as coverage. I can be physical or special, because I have moves to facilitate both offensives, and my stats also are very well rounded in that aspect. But yeah, I'm super excited for Diancie. I think it's a very solid mon, and I'm really excited to use it in this generation, in this season. Now you'll notice that I have 2 rock types and 2 psychic types. Because of Boulder being a Terra Captain, I kind of ignored its types a little bit. Just because I'm not really ever going to terrestrialize into a rock or a psychic type, so for me it didn't make sense to take that into account when drafting the rest of my team. But yeah, next up, we're bringing in Fortress, which is definitely a fan favorite of mine, and it's a favorite of your guys' as well. I absolutely love Fortress. I used to absolutely hate this thing. I really did. But I started using it more and more and more, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I think it's fantastic. It is a very, very easy mon to just send in and take a hit, because it's so bulky. It's got base 140 defense, it's got a very high HP stat, gets a ton of coverage between Stealth Rock, Spikes, and T-Spikes, gets Rapid Spin, gets Volt Switch, I can Body Press, I can Gyro Ball, I can Curse and set up a little bit, and there's really no telling what this thing wants to do. I can set up screens if I want to as well, which is actually hilarious. So yeah, Fortress is a super, super, super fun mon. I think it's a very easy mon to just send in. I could also, use this as a way to facilitate my offense a little bit and get a slow Volt Switch into something like Boulder or Cinderace or Zarude, or, there's so much that this thing can do. So I'm very excited to show you guys this season. Next up, we're bringing Aquatoros, which I don't believe I've used since DDL Season 1, which was, 2 years ago now, almost? Jesus. It's been a long time since I've used Aquatoros, and I'm very excited to use it this time around. With its base 100 speed, honestly, it's not too bad at all, and it gives me a nice little speed tier round. And it's a very it's a pretty solid fast mon, and it's a very bulky mon as well. Gets a decent bit of coverage with its normal water and fighting stabs, and then its ground coverage. It gets Iron Head, Stone Edge, I get Outrage, I can Trail Blades, I can do a ton of different things with this. And with Intimidate, this thing is super, super easy to just slap an Assault Vest on and throw it into something. I'm very excited to use it. I love the Tauros forms. My buddy Thomas just used the Fire Tauros pretty recently as well. So it's something that, you know what, I know roughly how to use it, so I'm excited to see if I'm able to use it this time for myself. Next up, we're grabbing a mon that has kind of taken a gigantic jump in popularity in Gen 9 and has really taken advantage of the whole terrestrialization gimmick. We're going to bring Driftblim onto the team. Driftblim is super good with Gen 9 Terra and everything, which, of course, we're making it a Terra Captain this season. Now, Driftblim is such a solid mon. Getting access to the Ghost and Flying Stabs, which are very, very solid and very hard to switch into depending on your typing. And with the ability to now Terra, gets access to things like Clear Smog and Knockoff. I can defog as well. There's really no telling what this can do, especially now with a free Terra format. I can also run some sort of Citrus Berry into Unburden. I can run Flame Orb and Flare Boost, and then Terra into, there's honestly absolutely no telling what this thing can do. It's just a very solid mon all around, and I'm very excited to use Driftblim. It got super popular in Gen 9, and for good reason. It's just gotten so much better. Next up, we're bringing back a little bit of a quick turnaround for this mon. We're bringing in Swalot, which Swalot, one of the best, I truly believe Swalot is one of the best budget, if not the best budget fairy switch-in in the game. I absolutely adore Swalot. I just used it in the tail end of BBR, D-League, if you guys remember that. I used it for, I think, like 3 or 4 games. But honestly, Swalot is a super solid mon. It doesn't do any one thing particularly well, except for switch into Moonblast. That's pretty much what it's going to be doing most of the time. But this thing can definitely set up and sweep. Gets access to things like Knockoff and Destiny Bond. I can encore mons into something stupid and then force myself into setting up. I can Thunderwave, I can T-Spike, I can do Swords Dance setup. I mean, there's really no telling what this thing can do. And I'm very excited to use it this time. I love Swalot. I think it's gotten so much, it's gotten so good with Gen 9 and all this. I think it's something that can definitely become a very pivotal member of this team, and I'm very excited to see what it does for me this season and see if it can live up to what it did for me in BBR. Next up, we're bringing Pincurchin. Pincurchin is going to round out our draft. I only had a few points left over. I didn't have an Electric type, and honestly, for 3 points, a mon that's not going to come super frequently, I'm perfectly fine with, because what Pincurchin does is really it sets up hazards. It's, scalds, discharge, recovers, but its main thing is that it's going to set up terrain for Driftblim if I want to run Electric Seed, or Boulder if I want to do booster speed stuff. Plus, this also makes it to where mons can't rest against me, which is kind of nice, and I don't have to worry about, Hypnosis bullshit unless it's against Latias or Driftblim, or pre-Terra Driftblim anyway. But yeah, I think Pincurchin is going to be one of those mons that doesn't come very often, but when it does, you're going to know that it's there, really. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think of the team down below, and I will see you guys in week 1. Peace out.